It's time for Hostel Discourse, episode 16. Now your host, David Rolfing.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Hostel Discourse. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Netflix's new original anime series, Castlevania, as well as 2 debate questions. What is the best video game adaptation to TV or film, and which anime world would be the best to live in? If you haven't seen Castlevania yet, don't worry about it. Just check the show notes for the time codes and you can skip ahead to the debate or just listen to our high-level spoiler-free part of the review. But first, let me introduce you to today's crew. With me as always in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jacob Hunter.
Hello.
And back in Tulsa from the great Arkansas, Jared Cozart.
Rain King, Whoop Pig, hey gang.
Hello. And back again from Oklahoma City, Joe Kuiper.
Hello, guys.
Hello. And with us, back from last season, a fan favorite guest of the show, Canaan Smith out of Colorado Springs.
Aww, what's up, everybody?
Easily the most requested back.
I get fan mail every week.
Aw, stop.
The longer the hair, the more requests I get.
That's why Chris gets none.
Oh my god. That's mean, man.
I'm sorry. Just a hair joke.
All right, let's get into our Castlevania discussion. It premiered on Netflix July 7th of this year. It's actually an American cartoon, so technically I guess you could argue it's not a true anime if you only argue they come out of Japan, but in my book it's an anime, and it is also based off of a video game on the NES called Castlevania. It actually more aligns with the second Castlevania game. No, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Yeah, so what were your guys' thoughts on Castlevania? Did you like it? We can talk overall thoughts and then get into more specific plot details in a few minutes.
Overall, I thought it was an awesome anime filled with a bunch of eye candy and a story that was kind of less than memorable, but was enough to fuel the like extreme gore and just wow, it was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen, to be honest. It was awesome.
Yeah, it got graphic real quick. I also enjoyed it, but I would say the same thing, that the plot was very slow and drawn out. I don't know. You could basically summarize the whole 4 episodes in under 20 minutes if they would have done it right. But that being said, I think that the later episodes were great, and they kind of picked up the pace and went where I wanted them.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely thought it was a little too slow and not that much was happening. I mean, there are only 4 episodes, but the last 2 episodes and where it ended with kind of redeemed the first 2 in my book, because it really got me excited for future episodes. But as a whole, I don't think it really worked as a complete story, just because it was more of a setup for future episodes than a self-contained season of a TV show. So I think I would fault it there. And I can see why they did that, because they kind of wanted to test the waters with an original anime. Like, as a business decision, that makes sense, because they didn't want to pay for a 20-episode season, which is normal for anime. They only wanted to pay for 4 episodes, but it definitely wasn't enough content for me, and the story overall was a little empty just because of how short it was.
This is where I'll disagree, because I haven't watched that many of the Netflix original shows, but this one was super lame, I thought. Mainly because it seems like they're just testing the waters. The dialogue it seems like it's written by an 8th grader. Like, the main character, Trevor Belmont, will be asked a question, like, some random question, will just go on to give his life story or, like, spill his guts about all of his convictions about the world. That doesn't really match up with, like, I guess he's supposed to be, like, this apathetic anti-hero guy. A lot of it doesn't match up, and I wish they would have rather just gone all in on it being like a super intense, gory, well-written, and mature story, or make it like a really simple, dumbed-down cartoon, but it's just shifting gears all the time. And if they're going to keep making anime off of classic video games and then if they start going into video games that I really like, it's going to be a shame if it kind of follows this trend.
So, continuing on some of the points that were mentioned, I believe that one of the biggest flaws in this anime is not introducing Trevor Belmont until the very end of the first episode.
Which is saying a lot because there's only 4 episodes that are less than 30 minutes.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, I'm already getting only 4 episodes season, and you're cutting the main character out of a quarter of that. That's a huge portion of a 4-act story, and the entire first episode, I'm wondering, who am I supposed to care about? That seriously, I'm wondering that, and as an audience, you're not supposed to wonder that. You're supposed to know, okay, these are the characters that I am interested in, I sympathize with, I want to see change or overcome their challenge, and the fact that they just don't even introduce that until the very end of the first episode, and at the end of the first episode, it's literally like a 5-second shot, and then you have to wait until the second episode when Trevor gives his overly long and drawn out introduction. It's really weak for a character introduction, and I do believe that they could have gone in a much different direction with that specific element of this anime.
I agree with that, but in their defense, I would say maybe they were trying to do a thing where they introduced one character per episode, so it's kind of like 4 episodes, there's 4 main characters. First you got Dracula, the second one you got Trevor Belmont, the third one you got Sypha or whatever her name is, and then the fourth one you finally met Dracula's son. So I don't know, maybe that was what they were trying to do, but I would agree that it just took too long to get there.
That is a good point about the first episode focusing mostly on Dracula. However, I mean, it's not the protagonist. You need the protagonist from the beginning, I feel like.
I was kind of okay with them selling him like a protagonist at first, though.
Well, like he arguably is a protagonist.
Yeah, I liked him. Like what you're saying, I actually did like Dracula and sympathized for him after the first episode. And then the focus entirely shifts, and this character that I actually liked and was interested in is not in any of the show. Right,
yeah, so it shifts.
I agree. I really liked the intro and the attention they gave to Dracula. You really actually can sympathize with the villain of the show, which is an interesting thing. It's not just like a standard villain that you hate, but past the first episode, they barely mention him. They'd never show him again. And so that whole kind of story they built up with him and his wife, it's kind of falls flat, and you kind of lose that because they don't show him again. Like, while Trevor is doing his thing, in the other episodes, they could have gone back to Dracula and shown how he's reacting to his creatures, like destroying the world, and just shown him a little more. I think that's something that I would have changed, because I did enjoy the character of Dracula from the first episode.
I thought that was a weird part too in the end of, I think it was the first episode, when you first see, you don't know it yet, but it's Dracula's son come in. He's like, I'm going to stop you. I can't let you kill all these people. And then like they charge at each other and it ends and there's like a slash of blood. And then you don't see that his son anymore for like 3 more episodes. And the whole time I was like, who was that guy? And like, why is he important? And then they finally introduced him and they never showed Dracula again. So I just thought it was kind of weird how they set that up.
Jacob, you mentioned not liking Trevor Belmont, the main character. I initially didn't really like his introduction in the bar. He wasn't somebody that was very likable. And one quick side note, it's really hard to understand anything he says. I had to turn on closed captioning because he mumbles a lot of his lines and little one-liners as he's walking around and doing stuff. And if you don't have closed captioning on, I don't know how you could understand half the stuff he says. So that was a little strange. But I think his attitude started to work a little more towards the last couple episodes. He kind of reminded me of more of like a Han Solo type character, a little darker and more apathetic, but it's kind of the same thing, same vibe you get from him is like he doesn't care that much, but you still kind of like him because he's really cool and witty. But I guess you didn't see it the same way, Jacob.
No, I didn't even think he was witty. I thought his one-liners were kind of cringy, and I don't know. I don't know much about writing characters, but I feel like there's ways you can be surprised in good ways when characters do things. it seems like I was getting all these signals that Trevor doesn't care about anything, and that's what's cool about him. Then he's like risking his life for people that he has already expressed like a disinterest for, and that nomad tribe people, like he's mentioned that they have helped his family in the past, but he doesn't act like he actually cares about them. It just seemed like the kind of character that like just an edgy 8th grader would come up with, and even after an hour I was kind of sick of listening to him talk.
I did like one of his lines. He said something like, "It's your fault if I catch on fire," or something when they take him in the church. I thought that was a funny line, but yeah, I didn't laugh out loud at many of his little one-liners. Maybe
there's a voice acting part of it too. Like, I just didn't like the sound of his voice.
You don't like Thor and Oakenshield?
I don't know who that is. Oh, is he the guy from The Hobbit?
Yeah. He's like
Richard Armitage.
Yeah. Didn't love it. Sorry I'm being such a downer on this TV show, but I mean, I'm not going to rewatch it, and it's only an hour.
That's okay. Let's talk about some of the good things about it. I thought it was awesome. Portrayal of corruption in the church. And I thought it was awesome that this guy just like totally gets what he deserves. And it's I just like, if nothing else, the only thing that sticks out to me is in the last episode, the scene, the slaughter in the church, where it's just like blood and gore everywhere. Everyone dies. If I'm even remembering this correctly.
I thought you were talking about when just the archbishop.
Yeah, well, him dying. Yes. He deserved to be terminated.
Even that, I feel like they could have fleshed out more into, like, that could have been a plot point that the main bad guy is still alive, but they like killed him off immediately.
Well, he doesn't seem like a main bad guy. He seems like a trial.
All I know is someone in the production crew definitely had an issue with organized religion. Like, that was, if there was a main bad guy in this show, it would be the Catholic Church.
Yeah, they paint religion poorly.
Like, there's not a single character that's like a priest or a...
No, there is.
Who?
In the last scene, they're fighting, and Trevor asks a priest to, or he's like, is anyone a real priest to like make holy water?
Yeah, and he makes it, right. That's cool. Yeah. I liked that.
It was unique, like, perspective, because the bad guy was Dracula, but the bad guy was also the church. And it wasn't completely down on religion, because the speakers were kind of their own religion. They just weren't the hypocritical, evil side of religion. So they were kind of doing the right thing, and the Catholic Church was not. I
kind of took the speakers to be more like atheist scientists, but maybe I was wrong. They didn't really seem like they were into religion. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I thought it, but...
I mean, they had some sick magic fighting skills.
But they just kept talking about science.
I definitely feel like the biggest missed opportunity is... Okay, the idea of having, like, religion be a big part of the show is cool, I think. But in the first episode, they burn Dracula's wife because she's a witch. And in some ways, like, they're not wrong. She's married to effectively a demon, but the church is doing something that looks visibly like an evil thing to do. I think that's like a complicated thing that you can make a whole show theme around, but it ends up being cut super black and white, and so it's just like it's just overly simple. I think you're right, or I agree with you, Canaan and Joe, that it's like it's a cool, bold step to take, especially with subject matter that is, I don't know the word, like naive or something. Like, it's based on a video game, and not like a video game before there were even characters invented, basically. Like, no one could ever talk, or storytelling through video games was like really hard to do back then. So to try to like bring in big concept like that is cool, but I don't know, I think it fell flat.
I can definitely agree with that. And as I mentioned in my first point, less than memorable plot, cool graphics. I'm probably not going to watch it again either, like Jacob said. If a new season came out, I guess I would watch it eventually, or at least give it a shot. But
I would watch another season just because the end of this season really kind of got me excited what their little team's going to do. I think I'd watch it if it came out, and hopefully it's more than 4 episodes next time. Joe, would you watch again?
I would watch season 2 when it comes out. I would not watch... At most, I would watch the last episode again. I seriously think that plot was small enough you could summarize it all, like, remember it well enough that you don't need to rewatch it. But
very nice. All right, let's continue on to our debate segment. Before we get into the debates, I would like to read some fan debate responses to this week's debate questions. So these first 2 answers are for which anime world would be best to live in. At Red Brick Chris responded, "It's a classic, but best anime world gotta be Pokemon. I dream of roaming around with a Cubone all day, day."
Oh, yeah.
And then Jackson Goodspeed said, "I know it's not exactly anime, but I would say the world of Nickelodeon's Avatar, because even if you aren't gifted with the ability to bend the elements, you'll likely learn intense martial arts. There's a very low death injury rate for how violent it is, and there's always a surplus of cabbage."
Yes! Yes! Cabbage joke!
And then in response to the best video game adaptation question, at Luke Anlendor on Twitter said, "Pokemon the first movie, all the feels with a crying Pikachu picture." So, the first debate question, best video game adaptation to a film or TV show. Jared will be the judge. We will each be debating our own answer. So, Jared, I'll hand it over to you. You can dictate the order of things.
Thank you, Big D. I'd like everybody to remember 2 debates tonight, so responses must be shorter than the usual one-topic debate. Welcome to the courtroom. I'm the judge, and what I say goes, and that's how I like it. So, we'll start with 30-second intros. Canaan, I would like to hear what you have to say first.
Okay. My answer is Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. It is a film that came out in 2005. And plain and simple, my reason for picking this video game adaptation, is it's the only video game adaptation where I haven't stopped and wanted to play or at least had the urge to play the video game instead of watching the adaptation. That's it.
Excellent. Nice and succinct. That is good stuff. Jacob, let's hear from you.
All right. Coming in at a strong 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, I argue that the 1993 cult classic Super Mario Bros., starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, is the greatest adaptation of a video game, if not for the fact that it teaches us that film adaptations of video games are a terrible idea.
Thank you for making this an easy debate on us, Jacob.
Hey, Jacob has a point, potentially.
Is that it?
That's it.
Jacob and I are going hand in hand.
Big Joe, moving on.
I just want to say before I say about mine that out of all of these, the only one that I didn't even look up was the Super Mario Bros. One, simply because I've seen it before and it was horrible. I figured someone else would make a better argument, so hopefully someone did. So my choice was...
I got you.
Okay, good. My choice was Doom. This movie is probably probably the most viewed movie out of all 4 of these. It came out back in 2005, and it had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Need I say more? Basically, it features a group of Marines who go to Mars to a base there, and they find basically zombies, your classic demon fight, big guns, a little bit scary, but a lot of action. And it's just a great adaptation of the original Doom games, which were first-person shooters made in the 90s.
Okay, Big Joe, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
On to the next big friend, Big D.
Thank you, Judge. My pick is Halo 4 Forward Unto Dawn. This can be considered a feature-length movie or a TV show. They released it in segments, but it's also released as a film. This follows Thomas Lasky, who's a character in the Halo games, in his UNSC cadet troop. So the story is told through the eyes of their squad as they are trained and mature into actual soldiers. And the battle for humanity shifts from a civil war focus against humans to the introduction of the alien covenant. And there's a very exciting story arc, battle, but also very personal accounts of each of the cadets. That is my intro.
Thank you, everybody, for your intros. there was not a ton of information in the intros, which is good. It's supposed to be succinct. So I'll ask some follow-up questions before we go into rebuttals.
Jared, do you mind if I ask? Have you seen any of these movies or TV
I have
shows?
I've never seen any of these movies.
Okay, I just wanted to know. I didn't know if maybe
very unbiased stance from our judge.
I mean, that's good. I just wanted to make sure if I was arguing for something you already knew about, but that's fine.
Okay, right. So Joe, it had The Rock. It had lots of action. Is the action what made it good? Is The Rock what made it good? What was the underlying cause there?
Look, The Rock in any movie, great stuff. He's just a very charismatic person. But no, the reason that this is the best video game adaptation, it's your classic shoot 'em up movie, action packed. But what makes it special, I think, is a very specific scene where essentially, so the plot of the movie is they gave a chromosome 24 to these people on Mars and basically created a super monster out of it. And that super monster was then able to infect people, cause zombies, etc. And they give a chromosome 24 to one of the main characters at the end, who basically becomes a super soldier. And at that point, he enters into a first-person shooter point of view for like a 4-minute stretch of the movie, which I think is really cool because it looks exactly like the Doom games. And I mean, the movie itself, not phenomenal. Even the plot is like, whatever. But that as an adaptation was super cool to see. It was the precursor to like Hardcore Henry, which you might have seen or heard about, where the entire movie was shot in first person, but this was kind of an intro to that. So that was cool.
Okay, thank you. Jacob, any redeeming qualities about the film itself? Maybe the plot?
No, and that's the point.
All right, very good.
I will say this. This is the most notorious adaptation of a video game to film. It's what comes to people's minds when they think about the entire genre. And it's defining of the genre, and that's why it's the greatest. Every video game movie is bad. They are flops in the box office. They rate terribly among critics. And this was one of the first movies to ever try it. And it's just holding up this sign that says "Turn back now," because there's no good to be found here. Jared, I've actually sent you some pictures of some of the character designs that are in this movie.
They look nothing like the Super Mario Bros. Characters in the video game.
They are...
Jeez, Crocodile Head is pretty ugly.
Right. It's at least accurate to the content they're going off of. It is 2 Italian guys from Brooklyn fighting monsters. Literally, they're riding actual dinosaurs. This is the only movie that has taken the subject matter and actually been real with it and said, you know what? This is not supposed to happen. Just keep making video games instead. For that reason, it's the only clear and honest superhero or video game adaptation to a movie. And that's more than what can be said for these other movies.
I can argue that because Final Fantasy VII Advent Children is an anime produced in Japan, and I watched it in Japanese with subtitles, that it arguably could have more of a deep content than any of these other video game adaptations. And Final Fantasy VII Advent Children directly ties into, well, it doesn't directly tie into the video game, but it ties into the video game, which enhances the experience if you are a fan of Final Fantasy.
Judge, I have a rebuttal to both of those statements from Canaan and Jacob.
Proceed.
Okay, so first, Canaan. Yes, your movie does have a very complicated story, but that's its downfall. The movie is not accessible for anyone who hasn't played any of the Final Fantasy video games. It's way too complicated for anybody to get it. It has decent reviews when compared to other video game movies, but all of the negativity in those reviews comes from that standpoint. People have no clue what's going on if they haven't played the games. And I think that's something that makes a good video game adaptation good, is accessibility from a more widespread audience than that video game. Second, Jacob, you say that Super Mario Bros. Is accurate to the video game. it's nothing like the video game. You say they're two Italians from Brooklyn. Italian Mario and Luigi are played by a British guy and a Latino. They're not even Italian. Second, Mario and Luigi are adopted father and son in the movie. They're not even brothers. That's the title of the movie, and they're not brothers. Huge mess up, and has nothing to do with what's in the video game.
I don't see how either of those are important to their character, and you can't assess a character based on the nationality of their actor. That does not connect logically.
You say that the character design of the dinosaur type creatures is good. The Goombas look nothing like the Goombas from the game. They're like giants with tiny frog heads, and the Goombas in the game look like little brown mushroom things. The whole storyline is completely messed up. They changed the whole background of Mario. The movie starts, the introduction, it starts with talking dinosaurs, and they're struck by a meteor which splits the world into an alternate dimension. And then that dimension, they evolve into very human-like dinosaur people, and then somehow they get transported back to our planet. That's just not Mario.
Was it? Okay, yeah, was it that Jacob's point?
David, it is just as wild as the actual premise of the Super Mario games.
Wild, yes. Good, no.
We're not talking about how good these movies are. We're talking about whether or not they're great.
Also, Luigi ends up with Daisy. Mario should have gotten the princess.
Okay.
Can I make one point to David's point against my point?
Yes, of course.
Okay. David, you say that you think that a good video game adaptation caters to a wider audience. Well, I would argue exactly the opposite point. I would say that a good video game adaptation caters exactly and only to the fans of that video game, and anything else on top would be bonus. And I think that's a lot of the reason why video game adaptations aren't made, because pretty much no game, aside from, let's say, something like Doom or Warcraft or Tron, has enough of a player base to even be made into a feature movie. But my point stands that Final Fantasy VII does extremely cater to a specific audience, and that only enhances my point as to why I feel it is a great video game adaptation.
Halo Forward Unto Dawn also caters to the specific Halo audience, but they also make it accessible for a larger audience, and it would make complete, total sense for someone who's never played a Halo game. But there are enough details in it that a huge Halo fan like myself sees the details from the games that are totally accurate to the whole series. I need to go into a little more detail on Forward Unto Dawn. So the first half of the movie or show, whatever you want to call it, really focuses on the cadets and the development of Thomas Lasky. He's kind of a reluctant hero. He's kind of like anti-war and doesn't want to fight. There's a love story with him and another cadet played by Susan from Narnia, very talented actress. And then the focus is shifted from a civil war against humans, and the Covenant is introduced. It's the coolest surprise attack I've ever seen, and it leads to one of the coolest horror-type scenes that you wouldn't even expect. But the scene, I'll describe it to you. You know the elites in the Covenant? They usually have energy swords. They can turn invisible. The cadets are huddled in their barracks with an invisible elite stalking them. Great CGI of the elite, by the way, when you do see him. So they can't see him. They're being stalked down this hallway. It's like straight out of Alien or some horror movie, and it's pulled off really, really well. And at the end of that, the Master Chief is introduced at the perfect time to save the day and to get the cadets out of the battle. But at the same time, during that battle, Thomas Lasky is forced to become a hero and help Chief get out of their terrible situation. It develops him into a solid character for a future in the video games, but it's also a self-contained story that really develops throughout the whole movie. So it really adds to the video game series. It's a self-contained story that someone who's not a fan could watch, but it also adds a lot of backstory and lore to the story of the video games. So when you play the next games, you have a greater appreciation for Thomas Lasky as a UNSC commander, as well as the Master Chief.
Very good. Joseph, let's hear more from you. You've been quiet.
I'm not going to lie. I may have just spent the last 5 minutes or so just just enjoying myself looking at pictures of Super Mario Bros. Images. If anyone needs a great laugh, just type in Super Mario Bros. Movie and go to images. Because it's bad. I would say in response to David's one, because no one's really kind of taken that down at all, I would say that what he said about Canaan's being kind of very specific to the audience that plays the game, I think Halo especially is that way. If I remember right, in the TV show, they don't really do much of an introduction into who the Covenant are and like the background, or especially who the Master Chief is. He kind of just shows up without any introduction of, hey, this is a super powerful super soldier that's kind of a big deal. So if you're watching that without having played the games, I think you'd be at a serious loss. And I think the one movie out of all of these that doesn't have that restriction is Doom. You put someone like Dwayne The Rock in there and anybody will go see it. And it's just a classic shoot 'em up, but also is still true to the game. And game fans definitely went and saw it, if nothing else than just to see that 4-minute FPS scene.
Joe, you're close ahead of Super Mario with a 19% critic on Rotten Tomatoes and 34% audience. It's slightly above Super Mario, but it's still really far down there.
At least the CGI was better.
You can't hate on Super Mario for those nice puppeteer practical effects.
Man, I bet the budget for that movie had to be quite low.
Joe, you say Doom is accurate to the video game. They completely remove the whole hell aspect of, which is a huge part of the game. They take a portal to go to Mars, and a lot of the movie is spent on Mars, but in the video game, they take a portal to hell, and that's a huge part of the small plot of the Doom games, and they completely remove that from the movie. It's a very simple game with not much plot to work with, and they try to make it more complicated. But I think by doing that, not accidentally, but they took away a big part of Doom. That's why a lot of people like it, is that the fact that you're fighting like demons out of hell.
That's fair. And I was actually thinking almost the opposite, where the fact that they took the hell part out of it almost made it better, because the one thing about the games I thought was strange was that they combined basically Mars and like space with supernatural underworld stuff, two things that don't really mesh. Like, why would there be a portal to hell on Mars versus somewhere on Earth or something along those lines? But I think the thing that they did keep consistent, which was important, was just general scariness, a suspense, going around corners in the dark with only a gun, and all of a sudden things pop out at you. And I think that was very true to the game. But I do agree that they left out the hell part.
Okay. Love it, everybody. I want to hear, your 30-second or a minute, maybe, closing statements. And if you can, try to define what makes an anime adaptation of a video game, a movie adaptation of a video game the greatest, and explain why yours meets that framework. We'll go reverse order of how we started. Big D.
So Halo 4 Unto Dawn meets the criteria for greatness because it received good critical ratings, not incredible, but good, which is rare for a video game adaptation. The story itself is contained, but also is bigger and fits in with the whole Halo universe and expands that lore. The production of it is good. Everything is accurate to the video game as far as weapons and vehicles and characters. Nothing was changed. It's all like Halo canon and lore. And the personal focus on Lasky and his relationships and his development as a soldier into a commander is what makes it great. It's just a great story, great action pieces, but also great personal scenes. I think that is all.
Thank you very much. Joseph, you're next.
I think in order to be a great video game adaptation, the movie itself needs to remind you that this is based on a game, and kind of just stay true to it while also being able to take certain liberties. And I think Doom does that extremely well. Like I said, that first-person shooter scene is one of the first and best instances of that I've seen. And the entire scene, you think you're playing the game. And the movie itself keeps that scary suspense/action that was so true to the game. And the characters might not be well developed, but in that defense, the game itself, the guy you play as, has no name. He's just a random Marine, and the entire time people call him Doom Guy. That's the popular name for him. So it's not like there's character development in the game, so why would there be a great plot or character development in the movie?
Okay, thank you. Jacob.
Super Mario Brothers is the greatest video game adaptation of all time because it is the definitive video game adaptation. I'm serious. This is the one that's going to go down in history. Everyone's going to forget about Forward Unto Dawn and the Doom movie, partly because Super Mario is actually iconic, but secondly because this movie is iconically bad. And that's the point. It reminds you that video games are supposed to stay games and not become movies. And like I said earlier, this movie is actually honest with its subject matter. It deals with the fact that you're dealing with the most ridiculous characters in the most ridiculous situations. And this movie is a testament to the truth that people have been denying ever since, and that is that video games will never make good movies. And you'll know this if you watched all of the movies or TV shows that people brought up today. They all suck. It's just that this one sucks the best, and it sucked first. So it is the pioneer of this genre, and therefore will rightly go down in history as the greatest.
All right. Anchorman, Canaan, bring us home.
All right. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children is the greatest video game adaptation because of a simple fact. The animation style allows you to feel as though you're playing the game or as though you're still in the game's world while telling you a story without you having to be involved at all. It removes itself from the possibility of having cheesy practical effects or a clown lead actor like Dwayne The Rock Johnson or unknown actors that were in Forward Unto Dawn. It is true to the game. It is for hardcore fans, and it is absolutely the greatest video game adaptation that there is.
Excellent. Great arguments, everybody. Well done. So here comes the winner. I like to pick them off one by one. So here we go. The first loser.
What does that mean? Does that mean fourth place?
Yeah, is that like the
fourth
worst?
place. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
geez.
This is fourth place. Joe, I'm sorry.
What?
You come in fourth place.
Wow. Jared, I was going to pay you $20. I tried to bribe him.
You did say that. I was going to accept, but you never gave me that 20, so here we are.
That's true.
Your points weren't very compelling to me, Joe. And that's all I'll say. Moving on. Third place. Man, I loved your effort. I mean, you fought tooth and nail, my friend. Tooth and nail. But Jacob, third place for you.
I wish you had given me fourth place instead.
You can have my spot.
That way I can wallow with my choice of adaptation.
By greatest, you mean worst.
But you were getting outside the box there. You gave it a fighting chance, but no good. Okay. It comes down to Canaan and David. Who's it going to be? Our beloved host or our star-crossed friend from across the country?
Drum roll, please.
Star-crossed.
The winner is David.
Yeah. I knew it.
Canaan, I loved some of your points. I really liked your point. The very first thing you said, just your opening statement. Adaptation where the movie isn't overshadowed by the game. And then I felt like I was left hanging on that point. And I wish I would have gotten a little more. And Big D just had a lot of... It sounded like he was well prepared, had a lot of research.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It did sound that way.
So the winner of this debate is Big D. All right.
Thank you, Jared.
Of course. Moving on to the next debate, which is best anime world to live in. Let's jump right in. I'll just go random this time. How about Joe, loser? So that's not random, but Joe, the loser, you...
yeah, cool,
you
thanks.
start us this time.
Let's remind the world. Best world to live in. I have dabbled in the anime world. By no means am I an expert, and therefore my selections were probably limited. But one game that stuck out to me is a game known as Sword Art Online. And basically what this is the future of the Earth, not so far in the future, but they have essentially virtual reality. And with the virtual reality, you can enter into MMO games as well as other games, as they reference later in the seasons. the first season specifically focuses on an MMO that is like a medieval Skyrim-y kind of game, but they are essentially taken over so that the players in the MMO are forced to stay within the MMO, and if they die in the game, they die in real life. Obviously, that's not cool, and therefore I am trying to argue that I would like to live in this world after that issue has been resolved and patched.
I'd say that's valid.
Because I obviously would not want to play that game if I was going to die.
You're in the world.
I just want to be in the world post that, because I think the idea of online games, virtual reality is super cool. It's going to happen eventually. And I would rather live in a future like that than in some medieval magic-y place like some of these other guys are going to argue for.
Whoa, dude.
Hey, Joe, quick clarifier. What's an MMO?
Massive multiplayer online.
Whoa, dude, get it right. Massively multiplayer online. And then it can be followed by many different types of genre
RPG.
Games. My favorite being role-playing games.
Yeah. The most common type would be like Warcraft.
World of Warcraft, I'm sorry. The Warcraft games are separate.
Or ESO.
Or ESO.
ESO.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Jacob.
Yes, I'm arguing the one and only true answer to this question, and that is Pokemon. If you live in this world, your quality of life is very high. There's no sickness. There's very little crime, and if it is, it's not violent. You have these amazing companion animals with amazing abilities that fully understand English, and they allow extreme possibilities of just human achievement. You travel from city to city, getting better at your craft and achieving new heights, and you make friends along the way, and after 20 minutes, the credits roll, and you're off to the next adventure. The wrong answer in this debate is the edgy anime where evil happens and death is always around the corner. It's got to be Pokemon because it is simple, it's safe, and it is the most enjoyable of all these options.
Okay, thank you, Jacob.
Oh, you're welcome.
Canaan, what you got?
Although this may not be considered a true anime, I am going to go with Avatar: The Last Airbender for anime world which I would choose to live in. There's plenty of reasons for this, but most of all, the desire to live in a simpler time with simpler enjoyments and simpler connections to nature.
What nation would you be, Canaan?
I would be Earth Nation.
I think that's a smart choice.
Big tough guys.
All the way.
All right. Thank you, Canaan. Big D, let's hear it.
The anime world in which I would want to live is Yu-Gi-Oh! It's time to duel!
Jeez.
I chose Yu-Gi-Oh! Because this is a world in which the card game of Duel Monsters, enhanced with their technology of augmented and virtual reality, is played by almost everyone. It is a professional, competitive sports organization. There are tournaments everywhere. We can actually win money. It could be your career if you want to. But I'm going to specifically focus on the season Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, where you can go to a Hogwarts similar school to learn how to be a duel master. And I say it's similar to Hogwarts because there are different houses you're in, and it seems like an awesome world to live in as far as education-wise and a career path in Duel Monsters.
Okay, love it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to rebuttals, and then I'll probably ask some questions along the way.
Joe, SAO, Jared, I want you to know that make this clear in your mind. Thousands of kids trapped in this virtual reality game were killed in real life because they were killed in this game. Why would anyone want to exist in that world?
Because it's post that world,
yeah,
he's saying.
It is post that world.
They already figured out all the bugs. They got the bad guy.
You never figure out all the bugs.
Yeah, even after that game, the next game, one of the main characters is still trapped.
Season 3 is going to be about the bug coming back, and it'll be the same problem again.
Look,
it's a bad world.
I trust the IT people in SAO, and I think that they'll get that thing patched. And when they do,
that is such a spare argument. You are making up characters right now.
Yeah, they got a great IT department. Look, the thing is, the future is already going to have virtual reality, and basically I'm just speeding up the time clock until we get there. because I think when we do, it's going to be an amazing new way to play video games, and that's cool. And also, the rest of your answers are all in just weird, otherworldly places that I don't want to live in.
Can I make an argument right now? As the only place that would be going back to a pre-technological time period, I believe that would be the most refreshing breath of air that any of us could possibly get. So I'm just gonna point that out real quick.
How can you say you want to live in the world of Avatar? It's filled with violence, strife, and war. It's a war-torn world, even if it's in the past with less technology.
It's realistic. It's a realistic place.
You, a peaceful man, would not want to be in this wartime.
I would. I am existing right now within a period of wartime. I would exist in a fictitious period of war. Why would I want to exist in a fictitious era of peace and nothingness? That's boring. I want the battles. I want the spirit bending. I want the fire going against the water. I want it all. And eventually there's peace. And I also want the opportunity to be born as the Avatar. The guy who could bend all four elements and the force of spirit itself.
Canaan,
you're taking like a 1 in a million chance.
Would you rather be born the Avatar, or would you rather achieve greatness on your own through your own hard work?
Oh.
I would rather be born the Avatar.
In the world of Pokemon, you have everything you just explained. You have endless possibility for battle and improvement.
The Avatar has the same thing. And endless...
But you gotta be born the Avatar.
Endless possibility for inner journeying through the spirit world and meeting with your past lives, learning lessons that you've already learned 1,000 times before.
You're hinging your argument on the fact that you are born as the one person in the entire
I'm not
world
okay.
that is the Avatar.
Even if you're not the Avatar, you have a high opportunity of being able to bend. If you're not a bender, if you're in any of the nations that aren't Fire Nation, you're at least given the knowledge that there's 4 elements,
okay,
and they're all required to make up the whole picture of the puzzle, whole piece of the puzzle. Everyone gets that knowledge from the beginning. Fire Nation F's it all up by going and attacking because fire is...
Okay, I'm going to stop you from saying something racist right now.
How to describe it? Untempered.
Racist.
No. Okay, why not just up that probability of possible greatness up to 100? In the Pokemon world, all you got to do is buy a Pokeball for $10 and just nab one off the side of the road and you're started.
That's all you have to do. You're started. You're started. You don't have a gym badge. You haven't beat the Elite Four.
Yeah, you're not Ash, Jacob.
Oh, Ash is like the worst.
Where are you going to get that $10 to buy your Pokeball?
Ask your mom.
How are you going to make money?
Not like that's not a your mom joke. That's actually, I guess that's like actually what you would do. I don't know.
I see what you're saying.
In Yu-Gi-Oh, you win money from Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. In Pokemon, you cannot make a living. You can actually make a career out of Yu-Gi-Oh, attend a school and get a degree in duel monsters. In Pokemon, you're going to be a homeless loser fighting with little animals.
If you want to live in a world surrounded by people obsessed with a card game, not even a good card game, it's broken, there's 5 cards, if you collect them, you win any game without any competition at all. No thanks.
It's not broken.
I'm going to go for the world where if you work hard, you can earn your success. You don't have to be born the Avatar, and you don't have to buy the cards.
You don't have to be born the Avatar. In fact, worldly success, what is measured most likely by people such as ourselves, would most likely not be achieved by the Avatar. The Avatar would achieve more of a spiritually successful path of worldly insignificance, or at least little material possessions, and that's what I'm talking about.
There's still like that maybe 30% chance you're just SOL, you can't even bend. And to go against Joe, I mean, this has been iterated already, but you can't separate the world from the potential evil that you are trying to in your opening statement.
I'm not afraid of a war-torn world. We exist in a war-torn world.
That was it, Joe, not actually your argument, Canaan, but...
Yeah, Joe, what's your response to that?
Oh.
Look, Jacob wants to go live in a land of fairies and pixie dust where nothing bad can ever happen to you. And that is just, first off, not accurate, and bad things can happen to you there. And secondly, let's just take the worst possible scenario, and you're born a kid in a poor family who can't afford a Pokeball. Then the rest of your life, you just have to sit there watching other people play with their Pokemon, basically forcing animals through animal cruelty, which was my second point, because you're forcing an animal into a 3-inch cube or sphere to live out their life.
All you got to do is show me one example of that happening in the show, and I will concede that to you. But I don't think you can, because it doesn't happen. The point of the show is that it's all great. Like, that's why they made it, because it's a joy to watch and imagine how cool it would be if you could live in this world where no one was so poor that they couldn't afford a Pokeball, or like, and everyone has the opportunity to just work hard and train their pets to go fight other pets and just be the best.
Sick. I love dog fighting. That's great.
See, that's like, that's Michael Vick logic, man.
Okay.
Jacob, just because in the show they don't show sickness, just because in the show they don't show people taking a crap on the toilet, it doesn't mean that doesn't happen in that world. If that's the logic, no one's sick in Yu-Gi-Oh! Either.
You're allowed... Okay, if you just want to go on the basis that we can assume that anything not shown in the anime is possible and frequent, I think our conversation is going to devolve into just nonsense real freaking quick. I'm just going based off what you see in the TV show.
All right. Even as a peasant in the world of Avatar that couldn't bend, I would choose that life over anything else. I just would like the simplicity, man. That's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to portray here, is you either got the opportunity for a very simplistic life or a life with bending, which is awesome, or you have the 1 in a billion chance of becoming the Avatar, which would be pretty much the ultimate.
And you're back to the Stone Age.
I chose Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it is similar to our world. It's not a crazy war-torn world with battling tribes like Airbender. It's a pretty normal modern society that, except most people are professional gamers, which we all want to be. They play this augmented reality game called Duel Monsters, and you can make a legit living off of it. In Pokemon, you can't make a living off of fighting Pokemon because you don't win money from their tournaments. You would be homeless and poor and miserable. On top of that, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just a cooler game in general than fighting real pets, which you'd be very sad making your dog fight somebody else's dog. Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters aren't actually real, but they're projected from your duel disc or whatever, and so that you can actually fight with them. But if they die, it doesn't matter. They're not real, and you won't feel bad about them dying. You say the card game is broken. It's not broken just because you mentioned Exodia. Exodia is banned from Duel Monsters tournaments. You can't actually use Exodia past the one episode where a guy used it in a tournament. So that point is invalid. The school in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is, I say I would want to be in that school in that season because it'd be an incredible opportunity to become a professional gamer. And that's a career path where you can earn money, play Duel Monsters, and it's a steady lifestyle with a cool twist of playing this awesome game. So that's why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the best world.
I'll say, if you want to use the logic that Joe can't choose his world because he wants to live specifically post one event, that's exactly what you just applied to your own argument.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, I didn't.
In Yu-Gi-Oh! There are scenes where they get into a fight where his actual hit points are his life and he could potentially die.
Joe, the same percentage of Canaan being born as the ultimate bender or whatever is the same percent chance of being born into the Yugi family. The only people who come in contact with the Shadow Realm are people that are in Yugi's family, like Jaden Yugi and Yugi himself. So I wouldn't be fighting the ancient Egyptians in the Shadow Realm. That is like a 1 in a billion chance. Normal people in that world don't fight those real life battles.
David,
what if the Yugi family fails and then they do have to fight them?
Did they fail on the show? No. So that means they didn't fail in the world.
After the show, you never know what could happen then.
David, I want to hear your response to Jacob and Joe saying that when you say that you just want to live in just the world with the school, how is that different than Joe saying he wants to live in the world post IT problems?
It's very different because I'm not excluding myself from other seasons. I'm saying I want to live in all seasons, and that Yu-Gi-Oh! School is a part of that world. It existed even before they showed it in that season. They mentioned it. Just one of the main characters happened to go to that school, in the 3rd season or whatever. So I'm including myself in every season. Their points are invalid. That's not what I was saying at all. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This conversation, just from a third-party perspective, would be so funny.
Well, it's going to many third parties.
Hundreds of third parties.
Okay,
We're such nerds.
Joe.
Yeah.
Quickly. I just want to hear a little more from you. I haven't heard very much from you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And, okay.
Okay, look.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
First point I'm going to make is that in each of these situations, if you were born into the worst possible situation, you would be not in a great spot. But in mine, if you're born in the worst possible situation, you would be in the same spot you are now because it's just modern day. If you're born into Yu-Gi-Oh! And you don't have money to buy cards, if you're born into Pokemon, you don't have money to buy Pokeballs, and if you're born into the Fire Nation as some poor person who's forced to fight for the Fire Nation, then that's a sucky existence. So in mine, the worst case scenario is that you're just a regular person who's probably poor in America or Japan.
The only good thing about your world is being able to afford the VR machine. So if you're poor, you're just living in the same world as what we're existing in today.
Yeah. And that's better than being a slave to the Fire Nation or being a poor kid watching other people play with Pokemon that you can't afford. Calling your mom.
I feel as though Joseph and David have tried to play off that the modern world is perfect and free of problems, which it definitely is not. So if the worst of the worst in the modern world would not just be, a regular person in Japan, it would be a person who doesn't have food to eat or whatever. There's worse possibilities in every situation. And there is modern day, there's even slaves in, not to be dismal and dark, but there would be slavery in that world.
It seems a lot worse in the Avatar show.
Okay, good rebuttal. Love it. Got fiery, like the Fire Nation itself.
Oh.
Now, just like last time, in everyone's going to give a closing statement, and again, try to define what makes living in a anime world good, and why your world meets that definition. Same order we started. So, Joe.
Obviously, mine takes place post-IT problems. Is there a percentage chance that you might have a similar problem occur again? Yes, probably. But there's also similar instances of bad things happening to you in each of these other situations. Yu-Gi-Oh! Fighting Shadow Nation, obviously in Avatar, and Jacob loves to make it sound super amazing, but people do get injured and killed in that TV show. People don't just live indefinitely. But what I do want to say is that it would be amazing to have the ability to live out basically whatever situation you want. It's not just a medieval MMO. It's there's a basically Call of Duty equivalent if you're really into that. But I also assume that they would not be limited, and you could play out things such as sports. It carries weight because it can literally make someone's life better. This is one point I haven't brought up yet. In that if I were paraplegic, quadriplegic, any of those situations, the beauty of the VR in this game is that it's a neural implant. And so you could basically live out a normal life. You would be in virtual reality, but that would be better than the confines that you are currently in. So I think it carries weight because it can literally make your life better, more so than just having a pet Pokemon that you keep stored in a 3-inch ball, and more so than playing a card game.
Thank you, Joe. Jacob, what you got?
If you're looking for some slight variant of our current world to be your ideal world, you're dreaming too small. Look, I think Canaan gave a great second place answer. I love the idea of the simplicity. I think my idea takes it a little bit further. We're talking about how bad it would be to be poor in the Pokemon world. Oh, first of all, Joe brought up some stuff in his closing remarks that he cannot prove about my option I'm bringing forward. But literally the ideal lifestyle in the Pokemon series is a nomad. You are homeless. That's the point. It's easy to go run around and camp, and food grows on trees, and you're never hungry, and you just go to the next city and you can camp out and compete there, and then you're on to the next. And yeah, there is crime, but it's overcome every episode. and there's challenge and there's battle and there's improvement. It has definitely the low or the highest floor of any of these options that have been presented, and I think probably the highest ceiling too. If you look and see like the total greatness you can achieve, basically become a world-renowned figure just through your own hard work and determination. So I'm quite confident in my assertion that the world of Pokemon is the best one. Would be the best one to live in.
Your confidence is noted. Canaan.
I will maintain my standpoint of simplicity and just bring forth the point that anyone from the simplest peasant to the everyday bender to the world-renowned bender to the Avatar himself would have a place. Or herself, exactly, as seen in The Legend of Korra. Anyone in that world could find a simple and fulfilling lifestyle that is filled with authentic human connection and connection to something greater than each of them, which is defined in so many ways in the show, but is inevitably points to the one life force that binds all life. And I'm just saying, living in a world where all of those things were clear and evident and people were aware of that bond, it would be peaceful and fulfilling.
Excellent. Big D, bring us home.
Imagine a world like Hogwarts, the school, where you can take classes that are all about the game that you love, essentially a video game, but not just any video game, but the most popular video game in the world, where the most rich people in this world host tournaments for the glory that Jacob was talking about, that the top people get in Pokemon, as well as a successful career. I think the game itself is a lot more fun and a lot more strategic than Pokemon. It is that's why it's one of the top 2 real world card games, along with Magic the Gathering. It's a legitimate card game that's really fun to play. But on top of that, you have all the technological advances of Yu-Gi-Oh!, as well as safety in the world, and you're not going to die anytime soon.
56 million people have disabilities in the U.S. My game offers them a chance. Jacob's offers you a way to throw metal balls at animals.
Hey.
Arguments are
Joe,
over.
You will keep quiet in my courtroom unless you're spoken to. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
So the jury, me, will disregard what you just said. Even though that is totally impossible. Like when that happens in court, it's total BS. You can't just forget something.
A sneaky maneuver.
All right. Hey, guys, your effort out there was something to marvel at, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, honestly. Happy I was able to judge. Thank you to each one of you.
Thank you, Jared.
We'll do it like last time. And I'll just get right to it. Joe, you're out.
Just give me the last place again. Just do it. You suck.
Joe, like, if a listener, heard that on my first time judging, I gave you last place twice, they would accuse me of bias right off the bat.
I am.
Because we get in our fair share of scrums out there. Yeah, but look, man, your arguments were no good. And that's a fact.
I'm glad that you enjoy watching 56 million people have disabilities without a way to better themselves.
All right, take it easy there, Big Joe. All right, third place. Ooh, it gets tough here. In third place, I will give an explanation. Canaan. Look, hey, Canaan. This was tough for me because, I love the idea of your world, and listen, I love the simplicity. You made some good.
Yu-Gi-Oh! He makes a great point, Jared.
That's all I will say.
Okay,
continue.
That's
continue.
Funny. If I were choosing my own answer, I would choose Avatar. Maybe. I mean, you made good points. Simplicity was good, but you had some good counterpoints too. Like the whole country's war torn. That's not too simple.
Oh, that's not entirely true. First of all, I didn't say that. I said it. There's okay. All right. I know what I said. Whatever.
Let the judge speak.
Look. if I got it wrong, then I will be, the viewers will let me know, I think. But
I hope the viewers do.
Yeah. The only other thing was that you mentioned like wanting you wanted all the battles, you wanted all the crazy stuff, and again, that doesn't sound too simple to me. Sounds like pretty like it doesn't sound like the simple like life force like Zen that you were making me think of. So you're out. Only two left: Jacob and Big D.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
And the winner is Pokemon. Jacob.
Was there ever a doubt? No, there was not.
I can't believe Yu-Gi-Oh! Beat Avatar.
Oh man. Well, it was only, like I said, I would probably pick Avatar for myself over Yu-Gi-Oh! But I counted some contradictions in your argument, and Big D made some good points. I ultimately chose Pokemon because a lot of this debate was saying, well, in your worst case scenario, you're a Fire Nation peasant who doesn't, who's a slave or something. Or in your worst case scenario, you're going to die a child in this virtual reality and you're going to die in real life. Or in your worst case scenario, and when it came down to it, this was a lot of things thrown around, and Jacob said something I agree with, which is Pokemon's got a pretty high floor. You can bank on not a lot going wrong. So ultimately, Jacob, you're the winner.
Back on top, baby.
Congrats, Jacob. We are the co-winners.
Joe, I'm better than you.
Yeah, clearly everyone is.
Jared, thank you for your fair and unbiased judgment.
Thank you for letting me judge.
Thank you, Jared.
And thank you, Canaan, for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Canaan. Good to see you.
Thanks for having the newbie podcast guy.
Oh, you are a veteran by now. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the McGregor-Mayweather fight, as well as a fun fight-related debate. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe on all social media platforms, and if you are so inclined, leave your thoughts on this show's debate, and we will give you a shout-out on next episode as far as your responses go, or who you thought the winner actually was. Joe, you cannot comment.
I'm gonna go make some anonymous accounts. Don't worry.
All right, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So long.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Hostel Discourse. Subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And check out our other social media accounts linked in the show notes. Join us next time for more inexhaustible debate over the most questionable of topics.